In front of me is the new Redmi K50 Pro. Today we're going to do an unboxing. I'll give you the runs down, the specs, the reviews. I've had this for a couple of days, so my honest opinion, the good, the ugly, and the honest truth. Like always, this is not sponsored, so I can say whatever I want. Quickly in the box, we've got a phone case and of course the 120 watt quick charger. I'm really glad that you're getting the whole package here. 120 watts will charge this phone in less than 20 minutes, all right, from 0 to full charge. Now, if you're a heavy gamer, depending on the game you play and the graphic settings, you get around about 6 hours or so. Constant playing, which is fairly good, right? Given this is a fresh battery. Overall, this is a fairly thin phone. It comes in 4 different colors. I got the silver one. It actually looks quite good. It doesn't do its justice on paper, but in person, the reflection and the matte finish is actually quite nice. Overall, the texture is fairly smooth surface with a gradient satin finish. Fingerprint-wise, it does get fingerprint. Not as much as your glass-backed iPhones, but yes, you still do get fingerprints and they do come off pretty easily, but something to keep in mind. On the side, this is actually plastic. So that's one of the areas that I feel like it's a bit, you know, I guess they try to save money being a Redmi. On the front, we've got the first time for a Redmi a 2K Samsung AMOLED display. The maximum resolution is 3200 by 1440. It's also 120 Hz. Paired with the MIUI 13, it is very, very smooth. You really got to try this in person. Probably doesn't do its justice in camera. But one thing to keep in mind, so this is a flat display. So by that I mean it protrudes a little bit out of the edges, and if you hold it on the side, you can actually see or feel the edge. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is that the back camera. Now, the back camera for the first time is a step up. No pun intended. It is in a step up case design. You've got 2 layers of protrudeness, but it is one of the best cameras on a Redmi. 108 megapixels for the rear main camera, and then you've got a 8 megapixel ultra wide as well as a 2 megapixel macro. On the front, we have a punch hole camera. This is used for face recognition as well as a selfie camera. 20 megapixels here. In terms of ergonomics, look, if you're a gamer, you are gonna feel this extra piece of glass here, you know, kind of get in the way a little bit. If you're really a gamer, you probably go for the K50 Gaming Edition, which is a lot smoother on the back. You know, you can't have everything. And on the table, you know, it's gonna rock a little bit, like all phones. I mean, my iPhone, it rocks as well. So, okay, so quickly, just go through the specs. This is a Dimensity 9000, okay, one of the best chips that's out there in the market right now in terms of CPU performance, both single and multi-core. Now, graphic test, this is where the GPU kind of not as good compared to other competitors. Okay, I also ran the same test in Antutu benchmarks. I got a combined score of 981,000. Now, the phone comes with MIUI 13, so the previous phone I had was a MIUI 12.5, so 13 really does improve a lot of the experience, so to say, the smoothness and the overall graphics and animations. It looks very similar to Apple in certain ways, but the program is actually very smooth. The animations are fairly good as well. I haven't experienced any bugginess or sudden, you know, close down or restart of the phone like I did with the previous MIUI. So far so good for the last 2-3 days of using this phone. 120 Hz really makes the whole experience very seamless. Now, in terms of gaming, I think a lot of users would have gone for the K50 Gaming Edition, where there's actually 2 extra buttons on top. But for me, I tried a couple of games. We've got Genshin Impact, we've got, you know, PUBG as well as League of Legends, and it all seems to be very, very smooth. Genshin Impact is super smooth. I've turned it on to maximum settings and I was able to play throughout the game for about 20 or 30 minutes. Now, I warn you, it does get warm, especially this area here. It's not uncomfortable, so to say. You can still use this, but it does get warm. Now, overall FPS for me, I felt was fairly smooth, but there's occasional spikes, and you are going to see that in the game, especially when you turn on motion blur and you're turning really fast, and there's occasional lag. Overall, it's a fairly smooth experience. Likewise with League of Legends or Dota, you know, you're getting a pretty good gaming experience. 120 FPS throughout the whole game at maximum settings. I think the only thing for me is still this extra camera on top where I'm gonna experience that little bit of awkwardness. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the way they've laid out the speakers. So they've got a pinhole on the top and then there's another one down here, okay? So Dolby Digital for both ends, which is great. But the moment you hold your phone sideways, you are going to block one of the 2 speakers, right? Either this side, now if you hold it this way, you're blocking this one. So you're only hearing sound from one speaker or one direction. which I thought, you know, if you had two speakers on the very top, at least you can get the left-right sound. I'm not sure where the design concept comes. Maybe the infrared sensor gets in the way, but I really like the fact that, you know, being a Xiaomi ecosystem, I have a lot of Xiaomi products, you have the ability to control or use this as a remote for all the infrared products like air conditioning. It doesn't even have to be Xiaomi. Your TV, as well as, we know, if you have Mi Home, you can control all those apps. I really enjoy that. So it's been a while since I've used Xiaomi, and I kind of enjoy the whole experience so far. I'm actually using this for more than I initially anticipated over my iPhone. So that's an honest opinion from an iPhone user. Now let's talk about the camera. So for the first time, 108 megapixels with optical image stabilization. So I took a couple of videos outside, and you guys can judge. This is basically me handhelding, walking, and then just taking a couple of shots. I also try to vlog this outside as well with the front-facing camera. I think the front-facing camera obviously vibrates a lot more, so you can tell, right? You can definitely tell. Definitely use the rear main camera or the wide-angle camera as much as you can. You know, video has always been iPhone's kind of, you know, main selling point, but I think a lot of the manufacturers are trying to compete and try to make up for it. I think Xiaomi is trying to, in the photo industry, to kind of deliver as much as they can. With 108 megapixel, I feel like, you know, you get away with everyday shooting, right? If you're very picky, if you're very specific, you are going to pick the nitpick, the problems. And if you're taking portrait photos, you can see I've taken this to the very extreme test with a barbed wire behind it. A lot of camera, even the iPhone, cannot depict barbed wires through portrait mode as perfectly as I don't think any camera can. So, you know, you are going to see defects in the photo, which is expected. But here's another couple of photos I've taken, you know, just of a fairly easier calculative background, so to say. You can see it does a fairly good job of depicting the subject and then blurring the background. And then in post, you can actually adjust the aperture, so you can adjust the blurriness of your background versus your foreground, which is pretty cool. And then obviously there are other modes as well. Xiaomi has, you can use the Pro mode, which is basically everything is manual. You can set your shutter, your aperture, your exposure, all of that good stuff like you would want in a professional camera, and then you can take a shot. Even during video mode, you can actually rack focus, and I really like that feature. Give that very smooth, humanized transition. So that's a good point. So I think the overall package for the K50, I think it still delivers on Xiaomi's or Redmi's promise of, you know, value for money. Money does, or the price has gone up over time, and that's kind of expected. And I feel like Redmi is actually lowering the difference or the gap between Xiaomi. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I think for what you're getting at the current market price of all these phones, it is still a very good choice, I think, for someone who wants to have an everyday phone. This phone is definitely for everyday, right? You wouldn't just use it for gaming. It will be your main phone. It has a very capable camera, not the best, but you wouldn't pass it off as bad. You can shoot some very stable videos with the OIS, and then, you know, you've got the capability of playing a fairly good game. 120 Hertz on a 2K display, definitely a great combo, something that you probably don't think you need, but once you experience it, you probably can't live without. Now, given the price range, this is probably around $3,600 from where I am, probably equate to just under $600 US, and it might be renamed as a Poco F4 or something equivalent. But given the CPU, the power performance, and how well it's doing right now, on the MIUI 13, I feel like this is a great first phone or a main phone that you can have on a daily use basis. Honestly speaking, I'm actually using this phone more than I am with the iPhone. It's just, I think having a lighter phone in your pocket just feels a lot more comfortable. And the screen size, 6.67 inch, is a very good, I mean, benchmark size right now, I think, for the Android phones. So no complaints there. If you want to see more tech firsthand, unbiased, feel free to subscribe. I'll see you next one. Peace.